Good morning and welcome to our latest Brunch and Learn. I hope you are all well this morning. Do you know what? The sun is shining in Kent, so I bounced out of bed this morning, which is nicer than the last few days. But anyway, thank you for joining us. We are here talking about how search is changing, and it's changing fast. And we want to help you get ready to lead, which is exactly what's going to happen in this session. So if you've not met me before, I'm Becky. I'm the founder and CEO here at Reflect Digital. We're a performance marketing agency, and we're here to help you unleash your potential. We specialize in leveraging human behavior insights and using those to help you level up all of your marketing, everything from customer experience through to how you're found on the channels, and making sure that you're saying the right thing in the right place at the right time for the audience, which is changing, which is why we're going to help you today. So hopefully, if you ordered a brunch box, you've received it, and feel free to tuck in and enjoy that this morning. We want today to be as interactive as possible. So we've got a very few amount of slides that are going to set us up, and then we're going to be straight into Q&A. So please pop any questions that you've got through the chat. We've already had a load in ahead of time, so we've got lots to work from. But if anything sparks your curiosity, get it in the chat and it'll magically appear on my iPad, and we will see if we can get the team to answer the questions. So I am joined by a fabulous team this morning. I'm going to get them to introduce themselves to you. We're going to start with Matt.
Hello, hello. My name's Matt. I'm the Innovation and Automation Lead at Reflect Digital. So I look at how we can incorporate technology, AI, automation into the work that we do every day, but also how we can help our clients leverage it to improve their results.
Perfect. And then we have Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm head of content and digital PR here at Reflect. I've been here, I used to be a journalist for over 10 years, working at the likes of ITV News, Channel 5 News as a producer and content writer. And then I turned into digital PR about 8 years ago, joining Reflect. My job now is to make sure that our team write the best content they can, making sure that we are writing for audiences, but also for robots and AI, and also ensuring that we get the best coverage for our clients as well that have a real impact.
Fantastic. And then we have Lottie.
Hi there. So I'm Lottie. So I'm Director of Behavioural Science and Innovation at Reflect. And my role essentially is to help brands better utilise their market intelligence, their audience insights, and their customer journey data to enhance their overall brand experience. And what's really nice about my role as well is it's very much centred around bringing sort of the human brilliance and the use of AI and technology together to look at how we can work those together in harmonious relationship in order to deliver the best results for our clients.
Love it. Thank you so much. So your best experience today is going to be set up as muted standard view. So if you need to fiddle at all with your Zoom, then that's the way to do it. And as I say, we've got a couple of slides up front, then we're going to be straight into questions. So, and just thank you to the wonderful team that got your brunch boxes to you. We're going to move over to the slides. So there's a bit of technology going on here. I'm making sure I'm looking in the right place, doing the right thing. So, so this was your panel who you have met. Now, what is Search Pulse? So hopefully most of you have downloaded at least one version of Search Pulse. You'll have heard about it by just signing up to this. These are reports that we've been doing. So this was our fourth one that we've just released, which covers the whole of last year. We're doing them quarterly, and we're going to continue to do these because these not only help us see the direction that things are going, but they're there to help you. They're there to help our clients and our friends of the agency and our potential clients, which may be some of you. And it's there to help us understand what is changing because it's moving at such a rapid rate. We need to keep our finger on that pulse to understand and to be able to change our strategies accordingly. So over the last 12 months, we have spoken to 8,000 of the population to understand what search looks like, because it used to just look like this, but now it looks a bit more like this, and we can just keep on clicking. And there's so many different variations of where people are turning to for search. And we've told you this before, but it's true. We are still early on this change curve. We're probably getting closer to being into a majority, but we're not there yet. You still have a chance to be ahead of the curve and to be ahead of your competitors and to be doing things to reach your audience in ways that some of them won't be thinking about yet. So that's the exciting thing. And the fact that you've turned up today is even better because it means you really do want to be on the pulse and ahead of the game. So what have we found in this latest report? I've got a couple of key things that I'm going to tell you, and then the rest of it's going to come out in our questions. So this was a big moment for us as a team, actually. It's been really exciting collecting all this data over the year. We've passed the threshold earlier than we expected. So we thought this was more likely to happen Q1, Q2, 2026, but this has happened in Q4, 2025. So we have seen that we've gone to 52% of people, so more than half, that are using AI at least sometimes. That's huge. Like, considering some of these people wouldn't have known what ChatGPT was a year ago. Now people are using it at least some of the time, and actually some of those will be using it a lot more than sometimes, as we'll start to see in some of the other data. So this is a big thing. And you may have even noticed it. We were talking about this the other day, actually, in a meeting, how over Christmas, people around the Christmas table were saying, oh, I tried ChatGPT for this, or we have people saying their nans are using it. Like, actually, it is reaching people that you go, I didn't realize you'd know about that yet, but actually it's out there. So if it's out there and it's reaching those people that aren't necessarily in the sector, then it's definitely something that we should be worrying about with our strategies and making changes. So one of the other things we found is that Google is actually steadily declining. So if you have a look at this graph on screen now, you can see that Google, for the quarters of 2025 that we've been measuring, is dropping down from 85% down to 77%. So it's just steadily dropping. Now, they are picking up also, though. If you look along the graph, the two last sections are Google AI mode and Google Gemini. So they're not losing out altogether. I don't think Google will ever lose out altogether, but they are losing ground from a search perspective, with people turning there as the first place they go to search for a query that will be leading them to buy something, book something, whatever it is the person's doing. And as you can see, ChatGPT has been steadily inclining, as has Google AI mode, as has Gemini. So we are seeing this shift. Does this mean you should stop worrying about Google search? Absolutely not. Do not do that. You do still need to worry about Google search. This is not a case that's all over and done with. There is still going to be a place for it, and I think this is what we're doing here and what we're trying to help you with, and what we're going to continue to help you with is understanding how that's changing, to understand the effort that you should be putting into the different places. So on the next slide, you can see that ChatGPT and Gemini are democratizing the Gen AI usage. So on this graph, now if this graph is the first time you've ever seen it, what we've got on screen for you is a QR code which will take you to a blog article about this. But also I think Lucy's going to pop in the chat a link to a video where we talked about this in a lot more detail across the search journey and how this is changing. But this is something our very clever behavioural team have put together off the back of analysing the data. And we've got our 4 different drivers for how people search. So crowdsourcing, taste tuning, fact finding, and autopilot. I'm not going to go into them all in detail now because we'll be here for 15 minutes or so, and I've got questions that need answering. But Gen AI is sitting now more so than it was a couple of quarters ago in the autopilot space. So people are starting to feel comfortable that that's the first place they are just naturally turning. We're starting to see it form as a habit that people just go, oh, I'll just ask ChatGPT that. And all the versions of ChatGPT, all the different Gen AIs, but also, I don't know about you, I find people find it hard to say ChatGPT. I've heard many different versions, but that's what they mean and that's where they're going. So it's becoming an autopilot action that people are taking. But what we want to understand is, for what type of queries, and how is that affecting things, and how is it affecting their buying journey or their inquiry journey? So then also, before we dive into the Q&A and we unpack some of that a little bit more, for the first time ever, we've done a bit of a deep dive into a particular sector. Now, please don't switch off if this isn't your sector, because we've only got a tiny bit on this, but it's just interesting to see, and it might be interesting for you because most of us are consumers of this sector as well. And it leads in nicely to a question that we had from Laura Moore at Holgate Holiday Park. So thank you, Laura. So you asked the question, how are travellers searching and booking today, and what's changed, and what impact is AI having? So one of the first bits that came back through our data in our travel report, and we will link this later so that you can download the full report if travel is your sector. So you can see here that social is sitting across all areas of the journey. And look at that, 96% for inspiration. That is absolutely huge, that 96% of people that have answered our survey are saying that's the first place they're turning to get inspired when it comes to booking their holiday, whatever type of holiday that might be. And then you can see the OTAs, so the online travel agents are up there, and they stay up there throughout. They're definitely in consideration phase where people are trying to understand their different options. You can see search is there. It's not present. People are using it, and actually quite consistently across the journey, it is there. As is AI. People are starting to use that. So we're looking at about 34% in inspiration, dropping to about 30% when people are deal hunting. That's still a third of people are choosing to use AI as part of the journey. So you can see, but I think the biggest tell from this is if you're not using social and you're a travel business, you absolutely need to be thinking about that and thinking about the different types of content that people are looking to see. And when you read the full report, there's more in there as well about kind of the authenticity of content and the type of content people are looking for, who the messenger should be for that content. So there's loads to unpack in that, but that just gives you a highlight. We also on the next slide have got just showing you the kind of multi-stage journey, and this is across one of our quadrants again, which again is explained in the report if you want to go and have a deeper dive. But you can see people are looking for travel inspiration across the kind of personal and external space. So what we mean by that, they're in an emotional phase for definite, but they're either kind of following their own trajectory that they know what they're looking for and they've kind of got their own mind made up about what they're seeing, or they're also looking for a bit of external validation. So they're following influencers, they're seeing who their favorite people online where they've been on holiday and thinking about that and helping that advise them on where they should be going. Then they drop into external and rational when it comes to thinking about evaluating options for travel. So they're starting to really kind of weigh things up. And the rational piece there is because they're trying to decide, do I need to hire a car? Is this somewhere that my kids will enjoy going? What's the entertainment like? All those kind of questions. And then they drop into autopilot, so personal and rational. So that is their own mode that they like to follow to book, which will be no doubt following a search journey or following one of the OTAs that are one of the ones that they are close with, all using AI, but they're kind of going into autopilot of knowing, now I've done all my research, I'll book how I want to book. So you can read more about this in the report. So that was the last of it on the travel side of things for now. And then we're going to dive into questions. So hopefully that's set you up nicely. And I am just going to switch screens, so bear with me to get to my wonderful questions. So are we ready? Are we raring to go? Are we excited? We are excited. I'm excited because I'm so energized by this topic because it is exciting. Like, I think some people are scared of change, but I blooming love it. So let's dive in first. And Lottie, I'm coming over to you with this one. So this is Florence, our lovely Florence from Night Dragon. Hi, Florence. I hope you are well. So how is social-led discovery changing the way people search?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So social has been sort of prominent feature within that sort of journey for a little while now. I think one of the biggest sort of changes that we're seeing is that reduction in the breadth of sort of moving away from just looking at social to maybe searching on Google or wherever else they might be investigating for that information. They're actually getting much more of that information directly from those social channels. They're not needing to then sort of diverge to other places to gain that information. I think the expectation as well is that information can be obtained as much as possible within that sphere, because people don't want to have to kind of keep being sort of diverted elsewhere necessarily. So I think that's really interesting. I think the fact that we're now seeing kind of understand more about this link, this article, this ad on the likes of Meta, again, just means that we're seeing that people are able to kind of understand and digest that information, that there's someone else to then help them do that, which again means that there's not necessity to go elsewhere to find out that information. They don't even have to click on the link and go through to it necessarily, because that information could potentially be available to them to the level that they need there and then in the social space. So I think they're obviously they're sort of key and important areas. The other element is obviously, well, they wouldn't necessarily change necessarily, but the reason why socially obviously is so important is the fact that that social proof is there, and it's right in front of you. You can see how many people engaged with that. You can see the direct comments, so that direct link between what I am seeing here and actually whether that's a good or bad idea before I've even necessarily engaged fully with it, obviously is a huge part of that social, and why that's become such a huge part of that sort of inspiration and exploration phase within the search journey.
Makes total sense. And I guess this leads in nicely to a question that we got from Bimala from UK TV. Hi, I hope you are well. So she's asked, what does shifting search behavior mean for how we approach our content strategy? So I'm going to come to you first, Jo, but I reckon, Lottie, you probably, off of that social question as well, I've got some thoughts on that.
There's a lot really. I think we've got to really stick to I hate to say it, but the basics of content writing. Keep it simple. Keep it really answering the questions that people actually want. But also, it's not just for keywords anymore. It's actually opening that up to decisions, to how people are, like any queries that people have. It's that long form intent that people are looking for. So then that will help shape your content. But it's also making sure that that is applying to the audiences. So you've got to understand your audiences first to be able to create this content that's going to be useful. It's making sure that we are marking this content up, that it's got FAQs, that you're providing that expert commentary and providing that authoritativeness to that content as well, to be able to then attract both audiences and humans as well as AI as well.
Definitely. And I guess it also comes on to format and that type of thing, which leads into maybe some of the social side of things that you were just talking about.
Absolutely. And I think there is quite a link there with the AI side as well. Because when you're looking at, I think where people now have got so much information so much quicker in their fingertips than they have before. I mean, obviously Google's been a fantastic and all the search engines have been a fantastic method for years for us to gain information quickly, which we would have to have gone to a book or a CD-ROM, whatever, to go and get. Whereas now it's even shorter. And I think when people are then going through to the content itself, like the expectation of AI and how we optimize for that, making sure that the kind of crux of the information is very prominent at the top of the content. I think people also want to know that whole pyramid structure, which I'm a big fan of, when you're kind of giving that information up front. And then you can elaborate on that further, because some people don't necessarily want to read a lot of content, some people do, but then you can kind of balance the two pieces of like, actually I can give you that real, the essence of what I'm trying to tell you up front, and then you can continue to read the rest of it if you want to. And that also then sort of plays into the needs of AI as well, from a perspective of how it can interpret the information on the page.
Oh, sorry.
No, there's no need to content stuff as well. Like, don't put it for the sake of it. Do it so that you've got the audiences have that information that's clear and concise for them as well. Also, look at what kind of content. It may not be written. It could be video, and it could be that you incorporate social into that content as well. It's just looking at what types of content is most suitable for your audiences.
Definitely. I wrote an article for Search Engine Land just before Christmas on the idea as well that we need to start thinking of all of our content with the human lens, but also some of it is going to be that the AI is going to read it and the human wants to know, but they just want the summary. So it might be a really long article that needed to be a long article to cover what it needed to cover, but actually the human, we might not want to read all of that. We might be asking our AI assistant to say, tell me the highlights of this, but it needed the whole article to get there. So you also then need to think that we're also serving humans and we're serving agents in what we're writing or creating or whatever it's exciting, isn't it? So Matt, I'm going to come to you. I've got two questions here. I'm going to read them both because they're similar and come together on the kind of topic of metrics. So this was Gemma from Simply Business and Susanna from Hornby Hobbies. Hello to you both. So what are the key metrics to measure success in the age of AI for SEO teams? So that was Gemma's. And then Susanna said, what metrics should we be checking in a zero-click Google world? So they kind of tie in nicely together. So I'll start with you, Matt, but others may have thoughts on this as well.
I'm sure they will, because I think the top line here is that it's really difficult to work in a sort of a search space that has those two different paradigms, because obviously zero-click search, the thing that we used to measure was the clicks.
Yep.
So inherently that metric becomes a little bit more challenging. So there are a lot of things that are still going to be relevant. So traditional search, you can look at things that maybe you might not have been tracking deliberately, but a lot of tools will still track. So that's pixel position. So that's arbitrary away from ranking 1 to 10, which very much has been dead for a while now, because we've had featured snippets, because we've had widgets at the top of search. Now we have AI overviews. So that pixel position is going to be the only real metric about how high up that search you are. So that's one that I would definitely look at. But then equally, we start to look at these sort of aggregated views. And especially because AI is no longer just doing one search for a user, it's doing 20 searches and synthesizing all of those together. Entity search has been a thing for quite a while now. We need to start looking at actually what is the overall visibility for this topic? What is this entity that I'm trying to communicate to my users? And as Joe said, it's what would your user want to know? Even if they don't get quite the right keywords in the search, sometimes that's actually going to be surfaced as content in the AI overviews now. So that visibility percentage over your topic, I think, is another really important one. And I think that then helps give you some of these other metrics that actually we haven't really had before, but we've maybe wanted. So share of voice, share of mentions, share of citations. These are all really good ways of seeing actually in this competitive space, particularly in places like travel, e-commerce, where you have these very direct competitors. Those things are going to give you a much better view of actually how you're performing from the perspective of the user, but also from the perspective of AI.
And the pixel position bit that you mentioned, is that something, does GA4 do that for you?
Not inherently. You generally need to look at a rank tracking tool. So
Okay.
you've got SEMrush or AccuRanker or Ahrefs or any number of other ones. I think all of those track to some level that pixel position. The other way you can do it is quite a lot of them will have screenshots of the actual SERP when they've scraped it. So you can look at that and do calculations based on that. Sometimes it's an additional option. Yellow boxing is sometimes called as well. But that will just highlight where you rank from a visual perspective rather than just a arbitrary 1 to 10 number.
Feels like it's getting harder though. It's not just run me my rankings report and I feel good because it's all looking lovely in the green where I want it to. And
Yeah.
But then it's also kind of effort versus value of how much time should you spend worrying about some of this stuff when actually you could be doing the work to help improve it if it's going to take up a huge amount of time, and how do you manage that with senior stakeholders that might not understand it as well? I don't know, I'm making up new questions here, but they're things that are rolling in my mind.
I think it's a really important thing because historically one of the best things that you can do to help support entity search is around digital PR, and actually how can you spread the narrative of your brand and the way people understand it beyond just your own website. But that's been so difficult to measure previously that it's been a really sort of tough sell for a lot of companies, for a lot of executives. It's just, I can't see the return here. Whereas now we maybe have much better ways of being able to measure that, because if your content is being cited, it's being sourced in these new overviews, that's now a measure of digital PR. So I think it's a really interesting shift there.
Absolutely. And also there's like brand sentiment as well. So what is the content and what sentiment is that providing? So you can kind of gauge, is this actually resonating with the audiences as well? You can look at engagement. So, is this content being engaged with, like the publications as well? Like, is it being shared? Are people engaging with it? And that share of voice, like you said as well. It's kind of working in digital PR's favor, but it's like content and digital PR and everything. It's like all these metrics combined can really give you a real oversight and an overview of what you can track. Yeah.
Another one is looking at kind of brand as well. So in terms of when people are searching, this actually is a caveat with that. So looking at brand, so if your business is a brand, quite a distinctive name, obviously then there's an opportunity there to look at, okay, well, obviously that opportunity for people to have seen your brand present in different places has then prompted them, because if they're searching for the brand name, the chances are they're not looking for the answers that, that might be go to AI, they're actually just going to the website. We know how often people can be lazy rather than writing it in the bar, they still put the brand name into Google to get the result. The only caveat there is obviously if your brand is one where the brand name is one that implies kind of more generic naming, or your brand actually is a brand where people will go to potentially for information, then we are seeing again that you might then see that kind of muddy the water a little bit, because you're going to see drops in searching for your brand because people aren't going to Google for the insights and the understanding that they would have done. So I think brand is another one that we can look at. Just another point I think which is interesting on the whole aspect of measurement within this sort of zero-click world is when you then look at some of the comparisons that you do quite a lot within paid media, particularly with like AI, because I think it's huge AI, but we've been using AI for optimization purposes for 10 plus years. So I think the whole transition in itself is like maybe it's slightly less oh goodness, because we've had to get used to it already. But in addition, when you think of things like programmatic, for example, it's always had a hard life where we've had to justify what programmatic can do, because a lot of it's based on views. And actually that inability potentially to tie that viewing through to actually what's going on to the site has meant that there are some creative ideas that some of the paid teams have had to look at in order to be able to join the dots. So I think from your perspective of trying to help understand that better, actually, some of your other teams, such as your paid teams, and actually their experience that they've already had in some of this space is a really good opportunity to kind of, pick their brains a little bit about how have we done that, but also then, maybe give a little bit of credit for them. They've had a hard life so far. I know you're listening to secretly, so
you can tell where Lottie's from life was.
Yeah,
The tears are still there. But it's interesting, isn't it? I feel like we're almost going to have to get less hung up on some of the data, which for years we've got closer and more excited about having more and more data. And it's like, actually, we need to almost pull back from that and look at the bottom line. Are we achieving the business results that we want to achieve? And then it's trying to understand what do we think's helping that or hindering that if there's problems, and understanding your audience, and going back to also making sure we're asking customers, how did you find us, and getting that kind of data in as well.
I think there's also the danger of over optimizing for something now that you can measure, where maybe with the rate of change in 6 months, that's not going to be how it works anymore. And all of a sudden, you're not just not optimizing for it, you're optimizing for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
So that can be really dangerous.
And you wasted a ton of time trying to work out how to optimize it, building the reports that actually you don't need anymore. And I suppose also what we still don't know is, as the platforms, especially our kind of LLM type platforms, start to offer advertising and things like that, which we know is going to be coming down the line, they are going to start to give us a bit more data. So we just don't know what's ahead of us. So it's kind of, I would definitely, share this with your senior team to watch. You can even clip this bit for them as to help them understand, because it is tricky as well. They're used to being able to say, well, tell me how to measure this, and we've normally got an answer. And we're not fobbing them off because we're not sure. It's just the world we're in, it's changing, and we can't measure everything like we used to. Okay, it's a big topic. We could probably do a whole session on some of that. Right, okay, so this is a good one. I'm going to do 2 together again. So we've got Laura from 606 Club. Hi, Laura. So Laura's question was, how can I optimize my website to perform best in a zero-click search environment? But then we've also got Gemma from Waterside Holiday Group. Hi, Gemma. How do we make sure we're still found on search in a world of AI? So both similar questions. I'm going to start with you, Matt, but I think everyone's got viewpoints on this. But how do we get found?
Lots of different ways now, I think, is the answer. And as we've seen, the platform diversification in terms of that intent is now so huge that we need to start looking at our website as a sort of source of truth. Like, how do we want to communicate and present our brand, our offering, our products to the world? And so that's now going to increasingly involve humans and also being robots. And so the human element, as we talked about before, that sort of pyramid structure, clearly communicate, why is someone searching that? What are they going to want to find? How can we structure the content on our site to reflect that? But then supporting that with a technical aspect. So especially look at schema. That's going to be increasingly important. We've heard a lot of rumblings about LLMs.txt. That's been confirmed to not be used by any of the main crawlers. Whether that changes in the future, I don't know. But the same principles that that's trying to emulate apply to the rest of the content. So look at your same as schema in particular. That's one where you can start to link some of those entities together from your website. That's really powerful. Product, organization, all of those key schemas that actually for e-commerce have been very important for a while. Start to look at that for all of the products, all of the services, all of the things that you offer as a business, and just represent that technically, because that is going to support not just AI, but also the snippets and widgets that have been in Google search for a while. So that's sort of step 1 is understand the content. Step 2 is then trying to look at being found from a slightly wider lens. So obviously we have now got the opportunity to find a brand through it completely being surfaced by an AI in ChatGPT, in Gemini, AI mode. So maybe don't be as stringent on the traditional limits that we put on content, where like, what's the exact keyword? What am I targeting? How is that going to deliver sales, for example? Actually, how can we become that trusted source of information? How can we build that brand in a way that actually people are going to start to see us and actually not necessarily be searching for us deliberately, but then go, oh, I've seen them a couple of times. I now trust that brand. Why are they doing that content? Okay, I can go and look and find actually they do offer something that maybe I do like. And because I trust that brand, now that conversion journey looks a lot different than maybe it would if it's a first-time interaction.
Lovely.
From our point of view, recently we've been doing a lot for a travel company where we are just not stuffing, as it were, but we're really going all in on that authoritativeness. So we are working on like the skipper pages, as it were, for a yacht company, and really amplifying them, their experience, their expertise. So we're putting a lot of trust signals through that. So are they associated to any sort of body? Where are they trained? Any experts or insights into particular locations that people are really going to trust? And it's just making sure that's put across the website, and it's putting like any expert quotes throughout any of the content as well. Really drawing that, because that is what AI wants, and that's what it's drawing on. So that's what we are really trying to do as a big thing, but also to get your visibility be more visible is that digital PR as well. So it's making sure you're seen in publications where people are then trusting you. So not only trusting your website, but they're trusting you on other publications as well. So it's really sort of marrying up, and you can see that overall strategy coming through. So that's how I see it.
As you were saying that, I had a flashback to, and some of you watching won't be old enough to remember this, but Google My Business, and when you had your like avatar that would show up in the search next to your content, and you were really building your persona and profile. It almost feels like something like that would be quite good to come back to actually be able to see like your author profile and that kind of thing. So I don't know, who knows, but it is, isn't it? It's showing that authority.
And we know it's something that Google has been doing for a while in terms of being able to connect a person across multiple sites. So
Yeah.
especially in publishing, we've seen people who are very well respected writers in a particular area, maybe tech or cars or something, writing for a website because they work for a particular brand, and they leave and they go work for someone else, and they've never written on this other site. But all of a sudden, all of the traffic, all of the support, all of the authority that they had on that previous site now supports their new content, and they massively outperform everybody else on that website because they have that historic presence from Google to understand who they are. So it is really about supporting that. And as you said, from an AI perspective, quotes, statistics, all of the hard evidence, all of that fact finding from a trusted source is going to be the stuff that gets cited.
Yeah. It was Google Plus, actually, wasn't it? It was that turned into. Do you remember that when they tried to have a social network and failed one of Google's many failures? We always think about the things they've done well, but they, yeah. Any other thoughts on that?
Just in terms of like the more kind of unique element as well, isn't it? If we're trying to have like a different edge, different angle in that content as well, because otherwise, if it's sort of the same art that they're seeing everywhere, I think that's just another important factor to consider. You know, what is it that you're going to say that's unique maybe to your brand, that's specific to you, that then sort of differentiates you from, you know, potentially the same content that other businesses of a similar nature are putting forward.
Definitely. No, it's such an interesting one, isn't it? And just, yeah, thinking that content is being read by humans and agents, and therefore actually that more verbose, detailed content that we might have pulled away from because we were thinking, oh, humans don't have the time to dedicate to reading all of that. Actually, AI might then help the human understand that. So, it's interesting, isn't it? There's a lot to think about though, isn't there?
Definitely.
There is a lot to think about. It looks like we've had a live question. Hold on. Oh, my screen's frozen. Here we go. It's that exciting. It's frozen on the question. So it's Tom from Golf Breaks. Hi, Tom. I hope you're well. So how would you recommend best utilizing Reddit and other forums organically? So this is Reddit is a big topic, isn't it?
Huge topic. I mean, we started seeing it from a search perspective. Reddit became increasingly that perfect source for Google in terms of it was first-party data, understanding real user experience, real human behavior. That's become challenged now because as it's become so dominant in terms of the citations and the sources for AI, people have started to catch on to that. And there's a lot of stuff on there that is sort of in the grey and black hat space now of, I wanted a recommendation for this thing, switches to another account. I recommend this website. Eventually, that will be something that I'm sure Google will catch up to. All of the AIs will be able to start to detect. And we've seen before techniques like that get punished very, very harshly. So I would steer away from anything that tries to manipulate or tries to obscure who you are. It's very much about authentically engaging as an organic presence. I think historically forums have been a perfect example of this, where you would have a moderator or a representative of your business in there to help and support and sort of answer the questions that you users maybe have. Treat Reddit like that. It's a place to go and socialize with your audience directly and try and understand their pain points, try and understand their user journeys. What are their frustrations with you as a brand? How can you address that? How can you maybe counteract some of those negative sentiments that we see consistently? But also, yeah, the responses that you put in there are going to be the kinds of things that actually are also in the training data, alongside maybe some of those things that you don't want in the training data. So it's a bit of amelioration there. I would also look beyond Reddit as my sort of second point, because it's something that we've discovered as we've done more work with actually deep dive tracking on sourcing, what are AI overviews and AI mode in particular pulling. And actually Facebook groups is becoming a massive source, to the point where I think there's only a sort of 3 or 4% difference between their citation rate in certain areas. But yeah, 74%, I think, the Facebook groups and Reddit averaged out are used in AI mode Perplexity as well does a lot of sourcing from there. So look at not just Reddit as the sort of the golden bullet. Eventually it won't be, but try and understand where are users congregating, where are they communicating with other people, and how can we put ourselves authentically and not sort of try and manipulate it in some way.
Are we going to see more community roles, do you think, in marketing teams?
I hope so. I feel like community is one of those things that alongside digital PR has been so underrepresented historically. And actually it's one of those things that gaming has done incredibly well, where you can build the reputation of your studio, of your game, by being good at communicating.
Yeah.
And that in itself has massively increased sales of particular titles. We saw Baldur's Gate 3, very, very successful game. So much of that came from the fact that actually it was released for a year or two in early access beforehand, and they were engaging with the audience saying, what can we make better? What can we improve? How can we make this the perfect game? And then when it launched, they sort of already had several million sales. And all of a sudden that went gangbusters, because now you've solved all of those problems and you have a core base of fans of your brand.
Amazing. That's a really interesting. I mean, I'm not a gamer, so I don't know that example personally, but it's really interesting, isn't it? And actually, I think those community roles have always felt a bit fluffy, maybe, and a bit how would we show ROI? Probably sits in the same like people struggling with digital PR, all those kind of things. That actually they're really powerful and they're becoming more powerful. So
yeah, they're also so useful to form a content strategy or a PR strategy as well. Finding what people are talking about is like, that's just gold. Like we can tap into that if we can see that people have a pain point in a particular, booking, or they anything to do with your particular brand, then you can tap into that and use that as a real idea for a campaign. And yeah, it's such a great source of journalists love it as well. Like that a lot of their stories are based around what people are talking about in these social groups and stuff. So if you can tap into that, you're onto a winner, and you're likely to get coverage as well, and it will help your content. So it's sort of a two-pronged approach there.
Love it. Love it. No, it's good. Okay. So we then have a question from Heather at Hornby Hobbies. Hi, Heather. I hope you are well. So with search ever changing and AI taking a bigger role than ever, and this is coming to you, Joe, by the way, how do we influence the brand consideration stage for heritage brands that have a core product without repeating content?
Yeah. So with a brand like Hornby, I mean, it's brilliant, really. You've got that brand that you can really play on, the fact that it was established in a particular time, and you've got that real core audience, and you've got that core customer group as well. But to expand it, it's just maybe looking at doing a content audit, having a look at what you're talking about. Yes, you can talk about your products. Your products are always going to be there. They are such a core part of your business. But looking at other ways that people are using your products as well. So it's that craftsmanship, it's the hobbyists, it's the enthusiasts, it's the beginners, it's the parents, it's the grandparents. How can you tap into all of these audiences that is then going to help you expand and elevate your brand now to reach these new audiences, and AI particularly? So making it relevant. Trends aren't going anywhere. They are constantly appearing. How can you tap into these new trends that are showing up, and bringing your brand that heritage, keeping that heritage there, because that's great for AI, or that trustworthiness, but just opening up that little bit more. And again, that could be written content, but it also could be video content. There's just a whole scope of ways you can approach it. But I think it's keeping that heritage definitely there. That's the core part of it.
Yeah.
But also just opening it up as well. I don't really have any.
No, I mean, yeah, I think your main point there, which I totally agree with, is that heritage brands give you this creative freedom that a lot of brands don't have, because you can start to play on that, because people do know who you are. Actually, how can you reinforce that narrative? We've seen it with Coca-Cola, with McDonald's, with Cadbury's. These are very established brands that start to be able to sort of manipulate that and play with it and be a bit more creative, expressive, and do things in ways that actually you would never be able to do as a small startup brand. So look at things that are more sort of maybe heavily campaign based, rather than traditionally we're going to do 3 pieces of content this month. It's like, no, how are we going to bring this together? How do we communicate this brand in a way that maybe excites people or gets them interested in the brand in a new way? I mean, Cadbury's a perfect example of sending chocolate to people for free. That concept is something that is associated with that heritage brand now. because they've been able to build on that with creative campaigns and with the kind of work that they can do with that. So yeah, definitely play with it a bit more, I would say.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no.
You go. No, no.
I was gonna say, so I think also there's an interesting angle from more like an educational piece, a little bit that I was talking about earlier with like the brands, where people go to a specific brand because they trust it and they believe that they are going to be able to help answer the question. And like they having that ownership in that space as well. So for example, of Hornby, it's like understanding, okay, well, what is it that, you know, people, customers, what are the questions that they typically want to know that then will prompt, or what are the barriers that they're actually sort of up against that are particularly that they want to know about in order to actually consider Hornby as the solution to whatever challenge they've got, gift purchasing or new hobby they want to do, whatever it might be. But actually thinking about, okay, well, how do we help become the voice in that space, that trusted advisor in that particular topic, which then also obviously from an educational perspective helps with that visibility, but also then helps kind of bridge that gap between, okay, introducing that brand as something that is more heritage and is it relevant to me, to actually bringing it to the relevance and actually then pushing that forward and from a sales perspective ultimately. I think that's a really interesting opportunity. Like where is your place to play in that educational space for audiences?
And I think the playful piece is nice, like people get on board with it. I don't know if any of you saw that, I saw it going around LinkedIn, people talking about Franco Manca, the pizza brand. And obviously it's January, pizza is probably far off a lot of people's list of things to eat because everyone's trying to be healthy. But actually they came up with running routes and got people running in the shape of pizza triangles, and then like it's just people are talking about it now and people have gone to try to do it themselves, and it's just fun, and it probably has impacted sales, but it's definitely impacted brand awareness. Incredible idea. So it's kind of thinking also, how can you think outside the box, go against the grain of something? And so they've gone completely against the grain of Healthy January in that they're embracing Healthy January, but they're talking about pizza. It's really nice, really nice. We've got 2 live questions. I'm going to do these relatively quick fire because we're getting nearer the end, and then we've got a really good question to end on. So, Lottie, I'm going to come to you for this one first of all, and I'm going to hopefully pronounce your name correctly. I apologise if I get this wrong. So, Aditya from used to be at PwC has asked, AI search is evolving, and so are ambient interfaces. How should behavioural data models adapt to these new search behaviours and mediums? It's a big question.
That is a big question. So in terms of looking at how you're adapting, I think understanding how your customer behavior is changing is going to be fundamental, because if you don't have that insight, you're still going to be judging behaviors, responses, and you're designing the interventions that you'll be looking at in the wrong spaces. So I think that's going to be a really fundamental part of any kind of any brand approach when you're looking at kind of actually from a behavioral data perspective. The access to some of the data can be a little bit of a challenge, but I think it's to what we've talked about earlier. It's like trying to be a little bit creative about what data you're getting from it and how you can interpret that data to sort of help provide with a better understanding essentially of, you know, what's going on from a customer perspective. Because I think we might consider that we're not changing and our behaviours aren't changing, but actually they really are.
Yeah.
And actually our expectations are changing as well. And I think that's a huge area that perhaps we haven't explored as an industry as much yet, because the actions themselves are still happening, in order for you to then have enough data to then really understand, okay, well, what does that mean from a behavioural perspective? And something we were talking about recently was around, that the perception, again, if you're shortening the time, we've mentioned that earlier about how people are expecting to get information really quickly. What does that mean when they're on a website in terms of their patience? How, like bounce rates, like how are those metrics going to change? How are those on-site behavioural metrics going to adjust? Because actually the way that they are behaving and interacting with websites fundamentally will change. How are we then going to kind of measure that and look at that and not see it from a negative perspective? Some of it might be, but also like how are we interpreting that information that will then help us kind of adjust our approach.
Is also thinking about, I guess, as delegated choice starts to become more, that we're delegating our choice to, so we're saying to our AI assistant, give me the final 2 options, I'm looking for this thing, whatever it is. Actually, what we'll need to understand in the behavior there is how are we getting comfortable with that, and who in our audiences are getting comfortable to do that. Because some people might never in their lifetime get comfortable to do that and might want to continue to do their own research. But actually, how how does that fit in? But then also it's trying to understand the behavior of the AI and how that's working.
Yeah.
It's the layers of behavior
Yeah.
are happening in
I
here.
think what's also interesting in that point there around kind of the trust element, because I think that's going to be really interesting to look at is, yeah, we've got people that are using it, but actually they still say that trust is the biggest barrier. But actually, how many of those people are using it, but then just don't trust what it says and then go and do something else, and to validate that as information? So either, yeah, they are, that I think that's quite an interesting area of, just because somebody doesn't trust it, that doesn't mean they're not necessarily using it. And actually, they might think that they don't trust it, but ultimately, if they can validate it in enough places, or they actually start to sort of subconsciously take on that information, because we all know that even if we don't, like we say about trust, and people, how many times people say, oh yeah, they believe something when actually it's not true. So that kind of comes into the psyche as well. So I think it's going to be a very as I said, like I think at the moment the challenge is that the actual behaviours themselves are still forming, if that makes sense. So then to be able to analyse those and actually understand a little bit more detail around the kind of what's happening, so that then we can implement that within our strategy, is still kind of one of those areas I think we'll still start to see coming through in the next sort of year or so.
Definitely. I've then got a contentious question here. I like this question, but Joe and Lottie, we might have some fisticuffs coming. So Gemma at Waterside Holiday Group. Thank you for this, Gemma. And this is a really good question, because we're talking about things here where if we could add budget, it would make things easier, but sometimes we have the same budget. So Gemma's asked, is there an argument for investing less in traditional Google paid search and more in digital PR, given this changing landscape? I know.
Go on.
No, you go first for that. So I'm big on digital PR, so I do think that's like there's a lot to be said for that investment there, and I think actually quite commonly brands will default to things like search. They always have paid search, SEO, because of the direct return and the measurability of that, which I think makes sense, but it is fundamentally flawed in the sense of having that visibility in that more research phase. So I'm very honest. I don't have in terms of proportions, that might be slightly different. But yeah, so I definitely there is that necessity essentially for us to be focusing on digital PR strategy, and actually how that digital PR strategy feeds into the paid strategy as well. Because I think quite often, again, it's easy to sort of blow money, if you like, on paid search, let's say, or just turn keywords on. We sort of see how things are working. But if you haven't planned it in a way that actually takes into consideration what you're doing from a digital PR perspective, what topics are you talking about? How are you ensuring you're maximizing that visibility? I think from my perspective, that's the necessity, is to think of them as a collective. The budget aside, it will depend on like how you're doing it, the strategy, how you're sort of optimizing what you're doing. So I couldn't really necessarily say you have to sort of move budget. I wouldn't necessarily say that's always the case.
It leads into the product that we're developing at the moment, actually,
exactly,
doesn't it?
Exactly.
Because there is no one size fits all answer. It's not an obvious, yes, move this money, is it?
No,
because it's got to come back to your strategy and where you're getting your sales from, and what's changing with your audience. Because actually for Waterside Holidays, I don't know your target audience, but you might have lots of people that are moving towards AI, and actually this is going to become more important, or they might be not at all at the moment, and therefore that could be really dangerous to start turning your paid off. So it comes back to that piece of we need to do that research.
Yeah, I do think though that sort of the knee jerk to turn paid off, like fine, if you want to do some testing to see actually is my paid activity still bringing into incremental sales? And obviously brands are seeing increases in platform costs, which obviously then results in issues with sort of customer acquisition costs, etc., which is understandable. So there is that kind of necessity to look at, okay, what is my paid mix looking like? How is it actually performing for me? But I think just sort of defaulting and sort of swinging the other way and being like, okay, well, we're going to sort of reduce investment, I think is a mistake. I don't actually run working paid per se now, so I don't have an invested interest in that particularly. But I do think that is a mistake. And I think from, even though Google's share of voice is diminishing, there's still a lot of people there. So I think by thinking, oh, everyone's moving to AI, I don't need to worry so much about what I'm doing in that space. Although obviously there are plenty of opportunities to use ads within AI, which is growing. But still, I think that is just don't sort of knee jerk and be like, okay, we need to switch all that off. But I do think there's opportunities there to maybe sort of testing, A/B testing, you know, does this still make sense? Is this still the optimal way to be running my paid search campaign? Because actually it may not be. But, you know, I don't see Google reducing its income from paid ads anytime soon.
No, I don't either.
But I don't think it's likely. So again, I think, you know, it's just considering how does it work for you, for your brand, for your customers, where they are, but also just starting to balance some of that. So you're actually understanding, okay, this investment maybe isn't as it should be. I need to change my strategy for search. So I think it's more about adapting than it is about
timing wise. I'm going to move aside.
Sorry.
We've got agreement. We didn't get a fight. I'm sorry. Some of you might have been excited to see what was going to happen. Throwing glasses at each other. Who knows? No, let's. We're all friends here, and all the channels should be friends these days because it's so important. I'm going to tell you about our killer question. If you've been before, you know we always do this, and then I'm going to give you 2 minutes to give us some feedback, and then we're going to answer the killer question. So we have the killer question it's from Dan Stobbs from Radium. So hi Dan, thank you for this. Thank you for making it to our killer question. So how much do you expect AI-driven search and generative experiences to grow as a traffic source in 2026? So before we answer the killer question, 2 things to tell you about which are really important. So one, this is a gift we're giving you. We have a new tool which you can scan on screen, or Lucy's also popping the link into the chat. This is a tool where you can go and find out how ready for the future of search you are. So it's 25 questions. It will take you 5-10 minutes. They're easy questions, multiple choice. And off the back of that, you'll get a report to help you decide what to do next. So this is a really great tool for you. So enjoy it. Please give us some feedback on it. But yeah, get testing yourself to see how ready for the future of search you are. Also, I know we talked a little bit about travel, and we do have some travel brands here today. On screen and again in the chat is a link. If you want to join us, we are doing a virtual roundtable where we can dive into some of your challenges and you can talk with your peers from other travel businesses. So if you'd like to join us, all the details are there. It's happening in a couple of weeks' time, and we'd love to see you there. Right, the thing you were all waiting for. The answer to the question, the big question. So Dan's question, how much do you expect AI-driven search and generative experiences to grow as a source of traffic in 2026? Who's going first?
I can go first on that one.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting question because there's 2 bits in there and they have different answers. So the AI-driven search, definitely that's going to increase, if only because it's becoming the default. I think we talked about it in terms of people being in autopilot and starting to have that be the default behavior. So much of that has been helped by the fact that Google has put in AI overviews and AI mode into the natural experience. So very much slapping users in the face with, you should use AI, you should use AI, you should use AI. So that is going to continue. It's in Google's interest to do that. And we've seen that actually the other side is also probably going to increase. So the generative experiences, because they're diversifying that. In terms of how they offer that, what platforms and companies offer that as well. I think we saw 2 days ago now that Apple are going to start using Gemini models in iPhones because they've given up doing their own development because Google has accelerated so much. So it's not just that this main search that we've used for the last 20 years is going to change to be AI. Other platforms, other experiences are going to increase. The problem is the measurement of the traffic share. I don't necessarily think that we will see the rise be commensurate. I think it will be less about the traffic. We talked about metrics earlier. It will be more about those conversions and looking at the top level of how does your brand get communicated? Are you actually being communicated in the way that you want to be? And if you are, that is going to start to really filter through into how many people are directly searching, how many people are doing their sales directly through your website. So I think direct is maybe something that will come through that wider experience rather than being able to track ChatGPT sent me this traffic.
Love it. So Matt's taken a lot of words there. We've only got about a sentence each of any thoughts, if anyone has them. People are going to have meetings to go to. Joe?
I just think, yeah, it's going to be a big one, particularly for travel. There's lots of decision overload, and I think if they can help with the generative experiences, then that's going to be a big part of that. Yeah.
Lovely.
Yeah, I think just building the sort of additional tools that are specific to the use case. So like some of the travel tools that have come out, I think just like ultimately people are finding it easier and easier to use AI to solve their problems rather than just having to go into like questions directly. So I think ultimately, yeah, we are just going to see that increase.
Love it. Brilliant. Thank you all so much. We had questions we didn't get to answer. We will be coming back to you on email for those. So thank you for those. And I'm sorry we didn't get to answer them. We'll be back again soon with one of these. You're now in our world for having turned up today. So we will make sure we tell you about next reports, etc. And with your feedback, we'll be planning more events, more reports, and more help in this changing world. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for all your questions. Thank you to my amazing panel. I've learned a lot. I'm excited. Hopefully you are all too. And wishing you a wonderful Wednesday. Thank you.